Ever wonder what it takes to be a great communicator? Watch this video to the end and drop a like. And if you want to hear more about tools on how to become a great communicator or other things that you're interested in, drop us a comment. Again, that goes back to how the society raised people. If you remember when you were in elementary school, the teacher asks a question, a kid raises up his or her hand and says something, and the rest of the class laughed at that kid. But the reality is that kid was brave enough to get up and try and answer the question. And some of those people that laughed didn't know the answer to the question, but they just laughed because they rather feel safe and not stand up, but laugh at the kid that raises his or her hand. A lot of us grew up, in that environment. So when you have to be, in public to speak to a large audience, some of that still, resonate with you. But if you know your subject and you're confident about your subject, you've been talking to other people one-on-one about your subject, then you shouldn't be fearful. You should just go out there and just express what you know. When I was a fellow and I had to be involved in a speaking engagement during my training, I was so fearful. And I started to speak to one of my attendants. He gave me a book to read. I can't remember the name of the book now, but in that book, I found out a lot of the CEOs of major corporations have fear of speaking in front of a large audience. That sometimes they have to take, Xanax or something to relax them. And I find that very interesting. So fear of speaking in public is not unique to any one person per se. It can be at a very low level or high level of profession. I used to give lectures, but now I actually don't call it lectures anymore. I have conversation with people. And I think if you take that approach, you're not talking at people, you're having a conversation with them. Every one of us converse. We talk to our friends, we talk to our family, we talk to strangers all the time, and we're comfortable doing it. If we take that approach when we're when we're doing a presentation, like you're trying to pass on some knowledge, you're trying to share information. So if you take an approach that you're having a conversation with those individuals in front of you, I think it becomes less stressful. And the more you do it and the more you think about it that way, the more you get used to it, the less fearful you become and the more comfortable it gets. Don't take yourself seriously. We take life too seriously. Life is not as bad as we think sometimes. So if somebody makes fun of you because you said something, guess what? So you made a mistake. Laugh at the joke. Laugh at yourself. So what? You can move on. That was very funny. You find it very funny? Yeah. We all make mistakes. We all say stupid stuff. It doesn't change the rest of the information you're given. So someone laughing at you, you think you can even take it outside of that. Like if somebody calls you stupid, does that make you stupid? No. What somebody calls you or does to you doesn't change who you are. And I think as a society, we like affirmation. We like people to give us a pat on the shoulder, to acknowledge us for everything we do. We don't have to do that. Be yourself. Be happy with who you are. Do you? Be you. It doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't change you. So why would what somebody says change who you are? So if you're giving a presentation and you you misspoke or you said something that was funny and you pronounce something differently or strangely by error, that happens all the time. Even to presidents of countries or major big speakers, they've said something, they've slipped, have a slip of tongue. We call it slip of tongue. Things happen. So you said it, okay, big deal. You said, TV blooper, okay, so what? Life goes on. Come on, let's do it. Well, I wouldn't use the word likable necessarily, because if you start saying people listen to people who are likable, then you're almost, in a way, demeaning those other folks. And that's not the reason. So there are people who try to overtake the conversation, who likes to control the conversation. It doesn't necessarily mean they're likable. Um, I think they're just, they just control freak. But the reality is, in order to be able to stand out in a conversation, you have to have that confidence. If you have something important to say and there's no confidence in your body language, in the way you portray the information out, people are not going to listen. It doesn't matter how much information you have, how valuable that information is. If you're not projecting confidence, people are not going to listen. If you have nothing to say, there's no value in what you have to say, but you say with confidence, people are going to listen to you. People will do seminars on how to teach people how to speak to an audience. The way you carry yourself, the choice of words you use, the way you project your voice can make people listen to you. There's some words you can use that shows that you're not confident. And so using the right words can be very important. You can make people stand up, you can make people listen to you by the way you control what you say, how you say it, and you can draw their attention to yourself. And there are people who know how to do this, who are good at it, but they have no substance, but they just know how to control the crowd. And there are people who, again, who just need training on how to do that. Sometimes we project our own values to others. There are some of us that have this introspective thing about themselves. There are some extroverts. There are people who are more outgoing. They speak. They talk to. You can talk to anybody. There are people who are just kind of more reserved. And also life experiences that people have had. Let's say people live in a condo. There are some people that want to engage and meet their neighbors. There are some that say they want to be private. They want to, when they go home, they want to have privacy because they don't want people to get too involved in their personal life. That's okay. Those same people may be more sociable when they're out in the bar. But when they're home, they want to keep things private. Or maybe that's just their nature. They only want to be socializing with a select group of people that they are familiar with. Depending on which situation I find myself in. In some situation, I am more vocal, more outgoing, so to speak. In some situations, I'm more reserved. I tend to be more reserved in situations where I don't know people because I want to study people. I want to get a feel for who is in the room, where they're coming from. I don't want to have verbal diarrhea. I want to kind of get to know who I'm dealing with before I start to become more, kind of guarded in that scenario. But if I know you, yes, I'll be yapping away. But some people it doesn't matter what environment you put them in, they can chat away. They can talk away. But remember, we all have different personality. They may be very observant, watching. Those are the ones you have to be careful about because they are watching. They are trying to learn what goes around you. They're not afraid of the environment. They feel free like a bird. This individual, they're not talking just because they're just trying to fill the room. You may approach them differently and say, oh, hi. And just realizing they're being guarded, they're trying to know who you are. And then, in this space where they feel comfortable, you may engage them and they feel some trust. So sometimes it's that. But they also don't expect everyone to want to be your friend because it's not going to happen. Some people may not like you just because you're too tall or you're too pretty. It's just the way it is. That's just life. Some people are just if you want to be happy, they are not happy. They're never going to be happy. It doesn't matter what you do to make them happy. Some people don't go out. They're secluded. So there's so many things that get in the way. So you have to be you. And if people want to be with you, they'll be with you. If they don't want to be with you, just let it go and move on. The two things that give you away, whether you're confident or not, your body language and how you speak. You have control of what you're saying. Are you projecting confidence in your voice, in the words you use? Or is your body language just a meltdown? That's why you see people, manipulators, the people who manipulate a lot, they have a good body language and they say a lot of things that make no sense. And you can believe them. I was listening to a podcast once. And this guy said, did you know that smoking does not cause cancer? And the people in the audience looked at him. The way he said it so confidently, Even I, as a medical doctor, looked at him and said, whoa, whoa, what did you just say? He said, if you look at everyone that has cancer, lung cancer, they all have diabetes. So I submit to you, wasn't the cigarette smoking, because there are people who smoke cigarette who don't have lung cancer. It must be diabetes. And people in the audience looked at him like, and he looked at him and said, see, I was lying to you. That was a lie. But I said that lie confidently. I was confident when I delivered that lie, and you believed it. So it's all about how your body language is, what you say, how you say it. And again, it takes practice. Watch other folks, watch people that you are talking to, have somebody that's supposed to give you feedback. I mean, that's really it. Be yourself. Sometimes you try too hard. When you try too hard, then it has negative effect. So if you're given a speech and you're trying to get the attention or keep the attention of your audience, you're trying for them to like you, and then you do too much, and it becomes a problem. The goal is not, don't try for them to like you. The goal is to try and deliver the message. Be yourself in delivering the message. If you are, and you make a few jokes here and there, you'll be successful. But if you're so focused on telling jokes and being humorous, you miss the point, because you're not going to deliver the message. I think that's the key here. I mean, I consider myself a funny guy, but when I'm giving lectures, I do say funny things, but I say in the context of what I'm doing, the message. So I deliver the message in a humorous way. That way, the message is being delivered, but I'm not trying to be a little over the top. Make sure you know your subject. Be knowledgeable about your subject matter you're going to give or talk about. If you do, the rest is easy. If you're not prepared, then you're not going to be calm because something's going to go wrong. I remember years ago, we were trying to give a lecture. I had a PowerPoint presentation, and the bulb went out in the middle of the presentation. Now, ordinarily, somebody will freak out because if I didn't know the subject matter, I was so focused on the PowerPoint, then I'll panic. But once the bulb went out, I pushed the projector behind and I stood up, walked around, and just having a conversation about the topic. And I think that's the key here. So know the subject matter. So if something goes wrong, you don't need that electronic projection. You can just have a conversation. Again, think of your presentation as a conversation. If you go about it that way, if you know the subject matter and you can talk about that subject matter to somebody one-on-one, think of that audience as a one person and just converse with that individual. If people are not listening, you've lost your audience, obviously. And that's what I like, again, conversation. When you're lecturing at people are going to drift off. And there are people who are still knowledgeable about the subject material, but they're giving a lecture and half of the people are falling asleep. And they can't keep the attention of folks. If you're speaking about a subject matter you truly know, and you deliver that message in a conversational way, and you engage people in the room. I speak for different drug companies, and we go to this speaker training, and they have all these experts in the room teaching us how to give lectures and presentations to get people engaged, and they teach us different tricks. Where before your presentation, you go around the room, get to know who's in the room. During a presentation, you point to somebody and say, so how will what do you do in your practice? What do you do in your life? Have a conversation. So if you're ever in this situation, what do you think about this topic I'm discussing? So get people engaged, get them involved in your presentation. If you're just in your little bubble, you just keep talking, you're gonna lose people. But if you're talking and you pick, just point to somebody or asking them questions or walking to them and say, People don't want to be put in a spot, but the kind of question you ask is not putting them in a spot. You just are asking their opinion on how they do things, and just getting people involved. And do you have any question? Well, if you do that, people then feel comfortable. They start asking more questions. They get more engaged, and you have the different tricks. Those are just a few ways of doing it, but there are more tricks you can use to get people engaged without losing them.